Hey there. Let's take that again. Hi there. The topic of this video is voiceless twang and maybe a bit belting depending on where this video is gonna go. I chose this topic since, as you may hear, my voice has been viciously attacked by the spring allergies. Or this might be some kind of cold, not exactly sure, it hasn't been verified. But anyway, this is my voice today, and I thought that an exercise that wouldn't use that much voice would be perfect for this one. Okay, so you might have already run into the concept of twang in other videos in YouTube. It's somewhat common exercise nowadays, and it's used mainly to learn how to narrow the space above the vocal folds. In more scientific context, this space is referred to as epilarynx, but when you hear this term epilarynx, at least at this point, you know that it simply refers to the space that is right above the vocal folds. And that space can be narrowed by tilting the epiglottis, which is I don't have a good word for it in English, but it's on the front side of the vocal folds, and when we swallow it tilts this way, and it directs food into the esophagus instead of letting it go to the vocal folds. But its function can be also manipulated in voice production, and it creates sort of interesting acoustic phenomena when we use it, because we basically use it to help narrowing the space above the vocal folds. And when we do that, what it results in is that your voice gets somewhat into this direction. So it gets a little bit nasty sounding and sharp and so forth. When beginner singers start practicing and experimenting twang, very often there is a problem that they're a little bit shy in going full on board with the twang and really experimenting with it. One reason for that could be that it sounds a little bit or quite a bit different from the usual way of phonating that they have been used to in. And the other thing that might be that when you just start like constricting this space and trying to phonate at the same time, it can actually feel not so comfortable either, especially in the beginning when you are just trying to squeeze everything, and you use a lot of muscle effort for that and so on. So what I've come up with is this an alternative for the regular voiced twang. You could actually start experimenting with twang without making sound with your vocal folds while doing that. And this actually applies to many things related to manipulating vocal tract shape. When we do this, we can still hear what is going on acoustically in our vocal tract. The resonances of the vocal tract are shifting when we manipulate this space, and they change the sound of the noise when we exhale. In that example, I was just changing different vowels, and although I didn't make voice with my vocal folds, you heard all the different vowels while I was playing around with my tongue position. And we can do actually same thing with the twang. This would be just exhaling without twang, and when I add twang, it goes to that direction. Let's hear that again. Okay, let's try that together. First you can just do the regular, just exhale and try to create a lot of this breathing noise into the exhaling. And then in the second option, really open your mouth and then raise the kind of this, what are these called, the sides of the mouth on the both sides of the upper lip as much that way as possible, so you get this type of mouth shape. And actually we can, by doing that, only that, we can see what is already the difference. So I would believe that in your case also the sound of the breath changes somewhat brighter. Okay, the next step then would be, in addition to doing this, think about really tilting your how would I put it, the structures that are here in your Adam's apple or larynx. Think about tilting them very seriously backwards in this direction. So what should be happening at that point if we start from, it goes to that type of sound. Let's try a couple of times. And you might even get this little bit of that happening there as well. So when the space gets really, really small with the tilting of the epiglottis, also the, well, I'm not gonna go into the anatomy too much, but there are other structures, for instance the arytenoids, that tend to get closer to the epiglottis from the other side, so it kind of the space here gets from the front and the back, it gets narrower, and when it gets enough narrow, you start to get all these kind of this type of additional noise. And with this exercise, of course, you can actually approach twang in and also narrowing the space in many ways. But in this version, I suggest you keep the idea of narrowing the space such that you mainly narrow it this way, so from the front to back, and especially not necessarily from sides in this way. You might even want to think about it, keeping the throat open in this way and narrowing it this way. One kind of thought might help you in doing that. You might think about smiling from your throat, or you can kind of try to feel where your larynx is and try to smile below or down here while you do all these other maneuvers. So let's start from the top. First we open mouth quite wide, then there, it kind of the sound that comes, it sort of resembles, I don't know, some angry animal, maybe a bit, maybe cat that is trying to show that now it's not a good time to approach, or something like that. But in general, the sound, the more you tilt this way and make the space above the vocal folds smaller, the kind of the sharper and brighter the sound gets. It's very opposite to if you think about yawning and making even your lips a little bit rounded like this, and then you can already from that hear that the setting produces quite dark sound quality. The vocal tract resonances are, especially the first resonances, are quite low, and then when we go to we raise the resonances, and we actually have some clustering of the resonances at some specific frequencies that really make the even the breathing noise sound sort of piercing. In addition to all those mentioned adjustments, you can also think about that you are with your tongue, with the kind of the lower end and the back of your tongue, you are kind of pushing also here the space a little bit narrower in this way, in this direction. So your tongue basically, it obviously starts here, but it continues here and goes quite far in the throat. And think about, with the very end of it, you kind of push towards your towards the back of your neck. Anyway, this way. That is one way that can help you achieve this sound. However, very often it is the case that you don't have to go in that detail in adjusting these knowingly. You can, very often it's mainly enough if you open your mouth wide open and then just try to imitate this nasty sound, making it very bright and sharp, nasty sounding noise. That way you already, very often you get the desired setting here. And yes, that is one way to experiment with the twang, and now let's try to put it somehow in practice as well. Why would you want to practice this? Well, you might not be interested in singing with that extreme twang setting, because in reality, when you add sound to that, or voice, what you will be getting, let's try it actually, you can try it, you can actually, if you want, now you can stop the video and try it yourself. Find the setting that we just did, very extreme fashion, and then instead of exhaling, add sound to it and try to keep the setting exactly the same. And then return to this video and let's see if you are in a similar place with me with the sound. Now stop the video and then return. Good, now you have tried it. Let's see what happens in my case. Well, that is a pretty twanged sound right there. And why to experiment this even if you don't want to sound like that? This is, although it sounds quite extreme, it's also at the same time pretty efficient sound. It transforms a lot of energy from the lungs into vocal cord vibration and sound. That is why it's good to experiment with. And you can, when you have kind of located the correct action how to get that extreme sound, you can go a little less extreme with it. Let's see if I go I was kind of trying to get from very narrow space to actually quite open space. But the point is that there are places where we actually need some of that narrowing, although not in that extreme sense. We need it to some degree to be able to get the very efficient phonation and powerful phonation. If we don't have that, and we have kind of this very neutral vocal tract setting, we can still produce pretty nice basic singing at basic pitch levels. Oh, yeah. But this type of sound quality is something that is very hard to, for instance, get above the register break area. I don't know if this is gonna be suicide today, try these. But I'm gonna try something that is called belting. And in my philosophy or methodology, in my philosophy, belting is something that both uses kind of open mouth, which helps increase the or raise the resonance frequencies, and also a bit of that narrowing of the epilarynx, not necessarily to the extent that it starts to sound like ah, but we certainly move into that direction. And actually this is something that when you practice belting, you might want to kind of experiment and find the right degrees of that epilaryngeal narrowing to get a most easy and best sounding belting for yourself. You might have somewhat different taste regarding the belting sound, or also because we are all a little bit unique in our structures and in our physiology, then some might feel the need to make bigger adjustments towards the extreme twang, and some maybe a little less. But let's see. I'm gonna try to demonstrate that. Again, E4 is about my register break. I'm gonna start from C. There is my today's allergic belting. Still went pretty high. And one kind of extra tip, not related to sort of this, but this is always something that I stress every time with basically everybody. When you do extreme manipulation to the vocal tract, when you sing, you might really benefit from also breaking down the extreme setting after you have finished the vocal phrase or the sang note. More specifically, when you inhale, if you sing in a way that you all the time maintain this and try to do everything through this setting, and also when you inhale you maintain this and then you keep on singing again, just making a lot of this narrowing here, you might run into problems, because every time that you add some extra effort here, this is basically what happens all the time. You get a little bit more and more and more and more and more, and then you have also some additional muscles starting to come with the action, and then you basically end up in a place where you don't have the twang in your sound, you have just ton of constriction there. So you're kind of in this type of situation, and you try to even add more and more to find twang, but you end up in a place where you don't have, like, the idea of twang is to actually make your voice more efficient in a way that you have to use less effort to get like bigger sound. So it should take your voice in an easier direction, not more constricted or more effortful feeling place. If I want to get really the best out of the twang, I have to start from the relax inhale, and then very quickly get to this Eh, eh, it's not gonna happen. The beginning was pretty pretty decent. Yeah, so that is turning up to be my limit with this broken voice today. But still you might have heard that in that example I wasn't doing like from the beginning, because I was exactly trying to locate the place where I have only the needed important part of and the amount of that twang setting included in my voice, not any additional extra work that would only basically kill the sound and let it not resonate freely. So that kind of side note as well. So I guess again we come to the conclusion that practicing vocal technique and doing all these neat little tricks to get your vocals more or better, we have to remember that practicing the vocal technique kind of always consists of two phases. First, we have exercises that really push you to the kind of force you into the rough setting. In this case, when we do twang, we really go to the extreme with the twang to really make sure that you have the muscles engaging that you need and the setting sort of happening there. But when we want to make it more musical and more elegant sounding, this basically consists every type of technique. I think at least most of the techniques. Then you kind of want to come a little bit back from the extreme setting and find a way to make it in very only to the extent that is required, because that usually allows you to make most natural sounding outcome out of it. And addition to that, what was mentioned, very important to also break down the setting and get back to the kind of neutral, relaxed state. When you are getting better at it, the purpose in the end is that you should be able to actually, from that relaxed state, to be really quickly move your instrument to the required twanged setting. That way also you ensure that you don't have some extra unneeded tension happening there. So basically from a little bit more twang. Here I'm already going too much, especially considering the kind of the outcome that I was aiming for. This is more closely where I wanted to be with this one. Okay, I think that's it. I'm gonna go back and rest my voice a little bit. Hope you got something out of this. If you did and you like this type of content, consider helping me out by liking and subscribing. Bye.